The following presentation on sustaining older persons, the sociology of aging, was given by Dr. Sandra Lee Samuels, Assistant Professor of Social Sciences at the University College of the Cayman Islands during Older Persons Month in 2018. The Department of Children and Family Services is airing this wide-ranging presentation to mark World Elder Abuse Awareness Day 2019 on Saturday, the 15th of June. The presentation covers various perspectives on aging and reflects on changing lifestyles, environmental influences, and emotions. At the Department of Children and Family Services, we believe that being educated on the aging process and the changing lifestyles of older persons can flag potential problems early and help prevent elder abuse.
All right, so briefly I'm going to be looking at the biological aspects. Genetics, of course, I talked about that a bit. We have been endowed with our chromosomes and we have matured to this stage. And during the process we have had spontaneous mutation. So what we have now may not be exactly what we were endowed based on environmental factors. So that has changed. And we also have predispositions. And these predispositions, of course, can be triggered early by lifestyle, or they can be triggered later in life based on inactivities. So the nervous system also, and when we talk about this, we are looking at central nervous system, which would be your brain, as well as the spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system, which would have to do with issues of flight and fight, yeah? When we get into situations where we're aroused. Now, researchers have shown that there is some deterioration in these areas in terms of the nervous system. Neurons in the brain, they're actually becoming less, although we have what is called neurogenesis. So the brain is constantly producing these neurons, but if we do not use them and they become a part of the networking, what happens is that we experience what is called synaptic pruning, where they're actually, as we would do in our farming. So if you have a tree and the tree is not producing as much as it should, what you would do eventually is to cut away those branches that you would have more fruits the next season. So the brain is actually doing that. And this is why we are encouraged to actually use those neurons, learn something new, make some new networks so that at the end of the day, cognitively, we're keeping apprised. The senses, of course, we can expect some decline as we move through late adulthood. For sight, it becomes, we find that peripheral vision is not that good, and adaptation also in the night, and this is why when you invite the older persons out, they'll tell you, I'm not driving in the night. If you can pick me up, I will go, yes? So we are familiar with that statement. And this is because the vision is not as good as it used to be. There might be issues also with cataract, glaucoma, and we also have what is called age-related macular degeneration. Now, of course, some of these can be corrected if they're caught very early. They can be corrected through dietary supplements as well as surgeries. Hearing, of course, I don't need to say that. We know, and I've been saying to the next generation that at this pace, we will be all doing sign language because everyone has the earplugs in and they're turned up. And I'm saying, you're killing those hair cells. Oh, miss, no. I said, you'll see. So, of course, as we age, we lose some of that as well. And what we find is that, especially high frequencies, it's very difficult for us to deal with that. Chemical senses, which would be your taste as well as your smell, that's deteriorating. So for those of us who have to look after older adults, they're not being unkind or mean to you when they say, what did you cook? how far did you stay to put the salt in the pot or some sugar, right? Actually, what's happening is that they're losing their taste buds, and they're also losing the sense of smell. And as a result, the taste goes as well, okay? Because they work together. Skin, so there are also issues in terms of sensation. And some individuals, especially if you're suffering from diabetes, what you'll find is that your receptor sites might not be as active as they used to be, so sensation might change, so responding to hot and cold and all of that might be off. And the body in general, of course, we can expect changes. Skeletal, of course, we're losing inches, and I won't say, but I always boast for 5'11", but I went to the doctor and she was coming down and I'm like, where are you going with that? Needless to say, I've lost some inches, so I am getting there. However, osteoporosis is degeneration of the bones, and this is avoidable. We can increase our calcium supplements, ensure that you take care of the joints, cut back on inflammation, because those are the things that trigger arthritis. Watch your diet also, that's very important. So in terms of the system, muscular, we know we're losing muscle mass. Digestive, of course, the system is no longer as active as it used to be, so what you find is that you might not be able to eat certain foods, or you might take much longer to digest, so we have to adjust the diet as well. Respiratory, for some individuals, this deteriorates as well, and what you find is that you could run up a flight of stairs and you'd be okay, but now, just walking along a similar path, you find that you're out of breath and don't speak yet. You want to catch your breath before, right? Okay, and in terms of circulatory, that system slows down somewhat as well, and some individuals might even experience numbness in fingers and toes and so on and so forth. Gross and fine motor skills. Gross motor skills have to do with the larger parts of our limbs, and the fine motor skills with fingers and toes and so on. And of course, we're losing some of that as well. For many of us, without practice, what you'll find is that you may take longer to do your buttoning, yeah? And if you have to type, you might take much longer to do that, and any other skill that might need your fine motor skills. Balance and coordination, and this is why many older persons tend to fall, because this is off. And what we find is that there was a time when you could just jump from your chair and just, no. Now, you'd stand in place, catch your balance, and then you step. Because if you're not doing that, what you might find is that you're on the floor and then you're wondering, how did I get there? But balance and coordination is off. And there's also a part in the brain that is called your cerebellum. You're losing myelination, which is like your insulation. And as a result, what you find is that those signals are not sent as effectively as they should, okay? Now we have climacteric. And of course, as the word should indicate, it simply means that some things might be coming to a climax, so to speak, right? So in the previous stage of the lifespan, women would have experienced menopause. And I don't know who tell you that the symptoms go away when you get to late adulthood. But the symptoms remain for many individuals, and they're varied. So it could be hot flashes, as well as it could be irritation, and so on and so forth. Now, for male, there is a decrease also in testosterone, and the prostate glands become more enlarged. Those are two significant things that you should be paying attention to as you age. Now, in the Caribbean, and I must inject, because what we find is that there is an increase in prostate cancer, and we have a stigma attached to the examination. And many men refuse to go to the doctor because they do not want anybody touching them that intimately. But I must say it's professional. As women, we have to go and we have to do mammograms and pap smears and so on and so forth. And of course, it's embarrassing, but we know it's a professional setting and we need to be able to check to see what's happening. So men, do not wait until you get to older adulthood. You need to do that. Give yourself that for your 40th birthday. Now, there is also an issue with sexuality. And for many individuals, in class when I'm teaching developmental psychology and I talk about this, and I say, I'm asking my students, do you think that your parents or grandparents might still be sexually active and they're intimate with each other? And of course, they'll tell me, Miss, don't put that in my brain. I don't want to think about it. But we live in a society where we do not speak about these things. But of course, for individuals, if you get to the old adulthood and you're still physically active, men can produce children into their 90s. I think 98 is the oldest father. He had about 20 wives, and so there is that possibility. And of course, while there might be decline, because based on the menopausal symptoms that women may experience, and I must interject also that many men refuse to educate themselves in terms of what's happening to your partner. And it's good to know, because many men will say, well, this woman no longer wants me to touch her. And as a result, I'm finding a newer model. However, what it means is that you might just try to touch her during one of those hot flashes, yeah? So she wants some air, but it's not that. Also, there's thinning in terms of the vagina and lubrication and all of that. So there has to be an understanding in terms of the aging process. And if not, that's why we find that there's a peak also in divorces during this time because of a lack of education. Lifestyles, of course, for many individuals, this vary. And we have some individuals who their lifestyles might be extreme. Of course, some love to consume alcohol. We should take it down a notch or two as we age because the body is not processing, or we should increase our water intake. It is said that to every ounce you should have at least 6 ounces of water in terms of allowing your kidneys to be flushed and your liver and all of that, okay? And I'll interject, I have this friend who sometimes will text to say, I'm with friends and I'm having a drink, and I'll text back and say, how many so far? And he'll say, 4. And I'll say, moderation. And then he'll tell me, moderation isn't here as yet. So we have a laugh about it, but it's something that we should take seriously, because at the end of the day, as we consume, the liver is deteriorating and the kidneys as well. Environmental factors, they're all around us. And in psychology, when we talk about environmental factors, we mean everything that's external to the person. So it could be anything. There's pollution, of course, or intake, so we have to be very careful. Last but not least, stress. And we know that stress is at the heart of most of the illnesses that we have, yes? And medical doctors will tell you that, of course, how we react to life events and hassles and catastrophes, and whether you're a type A personality, what do we mean by that? Someone who's always rushed, very competitive, have no time. Even when you're just going, oh, and if somebody's not attending to you immediately, it's, you know, those personalities. You're adding stress to your everyday lives, and it adds up after a time. So what you find is that these unhealthy behavior patterns can trigger physiological reactions and end result, heart problems. So take a breather, relax, it's important.